Hey everyone, before we jump into today's chapter, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you'll never miss a new audiofic. Your support really helps keep these stories coming. Now, let's dive in. Colorado Springs Airport, Colorado Springs, a few weeks later. Willow sat at the departure gate, waiting for her flight to Sunnydale via Los Angeles. The board above her read, "Delayed." She sighed and settled into the chair, trying to stay patient. One of the televisions in the waiting area was tuned to a current affairs program. The topic was the new president who had just taken up residence in the White House. Willow only half listened until the presenters began talking about his vice president, Robert Kinsey. A cold shiver ran up her spine. She remembered O'Neill's warnings. Kinsey was dangerous. He had tried to shut down the Stargate program, and when that failed, he'd resorted to blackmail. General Hammond had been forced into retirement under threat to his family, replaced by a puppet who shared Kinsey's agenda. But the scheme had eventually collapsed and Hammond had been reinstated. Still, the thought of that man with his fingers anywhere near power left Willow uneasy. She shook her head sharply, pushing the feeling away. This was supposed to be a break, a chance to visit Buffy and the Scoobies, not to dwell on scheming politicians with hidden motives. No, she wasn't going to let Robert Kinsey ruin her mood. SG-1 had a few days off, and she was looking forward to home, friends, and some normalcy. With 2 hours to go before boarding, Willow leaned back and closed her eyes. Maybe she could drift off for a quick nap. The sharp buzz of her secure SGC-issued flip phone jolted her awake. She sat up straight and answered quickly. "Rosenberg." "Oh, hey, Colonel," she said, her voice warming. "Hey, Red, have you boarded your flight yet?" Colonel O'Neill's voice came over the line, brisk and steady. "Not yet, sir. The flight's been delayed a couple of hours," she replied. "Good," O'Neill said, sounding oddly relieved. Willow frowned. The change in tone was unmistakable. "What's going on, sir?" "You're needed back on base. SG-1's leave is cancelled," O'Neill explained. His voice tightened. "SG-2 shot down a Goa'uld probe transmitting data to Anubis about an ancient device. We need to move, find it, secure it, and get out before Anubis does." Willow was already on her feet, weaving through the rows of chairs toward the exit. "Understood, sir. I'll be there as fast as I can." Women's locker room, SGC, 2 hours later. "Hey, Major," Willow said as she entered the locker room where the blonde-haired woman was changing into her combat gear. "Sorry I'm late." "That's all right, Willow," Carter replied. "And sorry about your flight. I know how much you wanted to meet up with your friends in Sunnydale." "Now, that's fine." Willow waved her hand dismissively, then opened her locker. As she started to put on her own gear, she asked, "So, do we know what SG-2 found off-world?" Carter nodded. "From the description, Daniel thinks they may have discovered the repository of the ancients on P3X-439. We need to get to it before Anubis and his forces do." "So, is this the same repository that downloaded information into Colonel O'Neill's brain a few years ago?" Willow asked. "The head sucker thing, as the Colonel called it?" "Yep, that exact same sucker thing. We're going to try and bring the whole device back with us before Anubis shows up," Carter said. "Is that even possible?" Willow asked. "Hopefully. That's why we need to act fast," Carter replied. It wasn't long before Willow was fully geared up. Together, she and Carter walked out of the locker room and into the hallway. After grabbing their weapons, the two made their way to the gate room. Willow's thoughts raced. Chief among them was how they were going to remove the repository from its base. A few minutes later, she and Carter passed through the sliding metal doors into the gate room, where they joined the rest of SG-1, along with SG-3 and SG-5. "All right, campers," Colonel O'Neill said just as the Stargate roared to life. "Let's go for another jaunt through the old orifice. Planet designated P3X-439. Willow walked alongside Daniel as Carter, O'Neill, and Teal'c led the way toward the statue where Daniel believed the repository was located. Meanwhile, SG-3 and SG-5, as well as SG-2, remained behind to guard the Stargate. As they approached the ruins, Willow looked up and marveled at the massive, headless stone statue a few meters away. According to Daniel and SG-2's reports, the device was somewhere near the nearby colonnade. "Wow," she whispered. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Daniel said as they passed several crumbling walls. "Yeah, it is. So, you think this was a colony of the ancients?" Willow asked, glancing around before focusing again on the statue and the colonnade entrance. "Yep, see the markings on this wall?" Daniel pointed to strange lettering along an open hallway at the statue's base. It was clearly ancient, though Willow had no idea what it said. As she stepped into the hallway, her body tensed. Her skin prickled and a shiver ran up and down her spine. "Whoa, do you guys feel that?" Willow asked, scanning the shadows. "Feel what?" Daniel replied, still studying the inscriptions. "Some sort of energy, I guess?" Carter walked over. Willow nodded at her. "Major, it's weird. I can't explain it, but it feels nice." They continued down the hallway. O'Neill muttered that he couldn't see anything resembling ancient tech, aside from the writing. Suddenly, Willow stopped and turned toward a flat section of wall. "It's coming from here," she said, nodding toward it. "Jack," Daniel called out. "Looks like Willow found something." "All right, Red, what did you find?" O'Neill asked, moving closer just as Willow reached out toward the wall. "There's something here," she murmured. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, a black object emerged. "Oh," O'Neill gasped, grabbing Willow by the shoulders and dragging her back against the column on the opposite side of the object. The rest of SG-1 retreated as well, pressing themselves flat against the opposite side. Willow stared at the device. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Strange, sleek, and unsettling. A small screen opened in the center, colors flickering across it. Discussions quickly erupted about how to remove it from the wall and bring it back to the SGC. But before anyone could act, Willow stiffened. A familiar wave of hatred surged at her back. She turned toward the sky. Through a gap between the columns, she spotted several Alcash and Death gliders descending. "Colonel, incoming!" Willow shouted. At the same moment, Colonel Reynolds' voice crackled over the radio, confirming the sighting. "Destroy it," O'Neill suggested. "No," Daniel countered quickly. "This could hold the key to the lost city." While Teal'c and Carter took up defensive positions, O'Neill and Daniel argued over who should risk the download. Willow's gaze drifted to the device. It was right there. She could do it. Time was running out. Before she could think better of it, Willow darted forward. "Colonel, stop Willow!" Carter cried, reaching out but only managing to brush Willow's collar. "Red! Red!" O'Neill lunged and yanked her back, pinning her against the column beside Daniel. His eyes locked on hers. "Neither you nor Daniel are touching that thing. Understood? I need him to translate once I get all ancienty. And I need you to help Carter and Teal'c. This is my job." For a fleeting second, Willow saw fear in his eyes before he turned away. He stepped to the device, leaned in, and a pair of black metallic hands shot out, seizing his head. A shrill sound filled the air. The download had begun. Then Willow felt it, a compulsion pulling her toward the device. It was calling out to her. Without thinking, she rushed forward and placed her hand on O'Neill's shoulder. A scream ripped through the air. Willow froze. Who was screaming? The others weren't. Was it her? Time seemed to slow, the sounds stretching unnaturally. She shut her eyes against the multicolored flashes that burned behind them. When she opened them again, Teal'c and Carter were dragging her back. Nearby, Daniel struggled to steady an unbalanced O'Neill. The device slid back into the wall and vanished. "I'm gonna puke," Willow groaned, clutching the column for support. She looked over to O'Neill, who appeared dazed in Daniel's grip. "Teal'c, Daniel, help him to the Stargate. I'll set the charges so Anubis can't get to the device," Carter ordered. She glanced at Willow and noticed her pale, shaky state. "Willow, we need to move. Can you do what you did on 666 to cover us?" "No, Major," Willow moaned, pressing her hands to her temples. "I can't concentrate." The buzzing in her ears was overwhelming, accompanied by sharp pain behind her eyes. Ships roared overhead, unleashing their attack. Willow shook her head, then forced herself to help Carter plant the C4, despite the agony. Once the charges were set, they sprinted out of the colonnade. "Let's go, Willow," Carter shouted, pressing the detonator. The explosion shook the ground behind them. They reached the Stargate just as the enemy ships began attacking once again, dashing through the wormhole to safety. Gate Room, SGC. After Willow and Major Carter stepped through the Stargate, they saw Daniel and Teal'c helping O'Neill out of the gate room. The other SG teams followed close behind. "All right, Willow, let's get checked out at the infirmary," Carter said as they walked down the ramp. Suddenly, Willow, who was on Carter's right, grabbed her arm to steady herself as her legs buckled. "Willow? Willow?" Carter called out, feeling the girl's fingers tighten on her arm. A moment later, Willow collapsed to her knees, groaning in pain. Carter spun toward the control room and shouted, "Medical emergency! Send someone to the gate room!" Willow could barely hear Carter's voice as the world around her seemed to dissolve. The familiar walls of the gate room melted away. "Okay, what's going on?" she thought, forcing her eyes closed against the sudden heaviness. The recycled air of the SGC was replaced by a warm breeze and a kiss of sunlight on her skin. When Willow opened her eyes, her surroundings had completely changed. She glanced down and froze. Her combat gear was gone, replaced with a simple yellow sundress. "What the hell is going on?" she whispered. She turned slowly, taking in the neat rows of houses with well-manicured lawns. Her gaze settled on one house in particular. "Colonel?" Willow called out, spotting O'Neill seated on a porch with a woman beside him. She ran toward him in relief. "Colonel O'Neill, thank God you're here. Where are we? All I remember is the gate room, and now we're in suburbia?" As she got closer, something felt off. Not only was she somewhere unfamiliar and dressed differently, but O'Neill himself looked younger. And the woman with him, Willow recognized her face from the framed photos she had seen at his home during team nights. His ex-wife. But how? Willow thought, slowing her steps. She opened her mouth to call his name again when he suddenly looked up. "No," Willow realized with a sinking feeling. "Not at me." The colonel's gaze passed right through her. "Colonel?" Willow whispered, reaching out for his face. Her hand slipped through him like air. A child's voice rang out from behind her. "Daddy!" Willow spun around. A little boy, no more than 4 or 5, ran joyfully across the lawn. "Charlie!" O'Neill shouted, his face breaking into a smile. Confused, Willow turned back just in time to see the boy barrel into O'Neill's arms while his ex-wife, Sarah, ruffled his hair. O'Neill pulled a baseball mitt and ball from behind his chair, crouching down to show his son. "Charlie, guess what? I got you a mitt and a ball. Wanna play catch?" "Yes, Daddy," the boy cried, bouncing with excitement. "Alrighty, let's go." O'Neill kissed Sarah before jogging out onto the lawn after his son. Willow stood frozen, her heart pounding. She barely had time to wonder what she was witnessing before a wave of dizziness hit her. The scene melted away, and when she blinked again, she was lying in the infirmary, SGC. Willow bolted upright in bed. "Oh, head rush," she muttered, pressing a hand to her temple. The buzzing in her ears was gone, and so was that jackhammer pain behind her eyes. She blinked a few times, rubbed her face, and then shook her head. "Okay, what just happened to me?" Glancing around, she realized the infirmary was empty. Even Dr. Brightman's desk was abandoned. "Guess she clocked out early. Can't blame her," Willow mumbled. "Lieutenant," came Dr. Brightman's voice as she walked in. "Sorry, I just ran some files up to General Hammond." "Hi, Doc," Willow said, already swinging her legs off the bed. So, how about we skip to the part where you let me go home? Whoa, hold it, Brightman said, raising a hand. You fainted in the gate room. I'd prefer to keep you here overnight. Willow widened her eyes in mock innocence. But I feel fine, really. No buzzing, no pounding, no light show behind the eyelids. I promise. Scout's honor. She sighed dramatically. Please? I just want to go home, veg out, and watch something brainless on TV. I heard there's a world's worst infomercials marathon. Brightman gave her a look. Lieutenant, I'll allow it. But if you get so much as one more dizzy spell, you're back here immediately. Clear? Crystal, Willow chirped, hopping off the bed and making a beeline for the exit. She disappeared through the doors, and then a second later, her head popped back in. Sheepish smile in place. Quick question. Where'd everybody go? Brightman chuckled. Everyone's gone home, Lieutenant. Oh, right. Duh. Thanks, Doc. Willow flashed her a grin before finally heading out. 5 minutes away from residence of Colonel O'Neill, Willow was riding her motorcycle toward the Colonel's house. She had questions about what she had seen earlier, and she was trying to make sense of why she was having visions of the Colonel's son and ex-wife. Speeding down the road, she leaned into a sharp corner when a sudden wave of dizziness struck her again. Her eyes widened in shock as the road and the surrounding landscape melted away, just as they had in the gate room that afternoon. The last thing she remembered was yanking hard on her brakes before everything changed. When her vision cleared, she found herself outside the same suburban house. On the porch sat Colonel O'Neill with his ex-wife. Their son, Charlie, ran up to the colonel, bent down, and whispered something in the boy's ear. Words Willow couldn't make out before Charlie went inside. O'Neill and Sarah embraced, smiling and laughing softly. Willow found herself smiling too. It was rare to see the colonel this happy. Then a gunshot shattered the scene. Willow froze as O'Neill and Sarah bolted inside. Heart racing, she ran after them, up the stairs and toward what appeared to be the master bedroom. Before she even entered, the sound of 2 anguished screams tore through the air. Dread washed over her. She already knew something terrible had happened. Stepping inside, she saw the spray of blood across the wall and on the carpeted floor. Her breath caught. Oh dear God. Colonel O'Neill was cradling his son against his chest, blood soaking into his clothes. Sarah was beside him, both parents consumed by inconsolable grief. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the vision dissolved. Willow blinked and found herself back in the same bedroom, only this time the blood was gone. The room had been arranged like a memorial to Charlie. On the bed sat Colonel O'Neill, his back to her. Willow circled around until she was facing him, and that's when she saw the gun in his hand. Colonel, what are you doing with the gun? She called out instinctively, forgetting he couldn't hear her. O'Neill raised the gun to his temple and pulled the trigger. Willow flinched at the click. The chamber was empty. He lowered the weapon, turned it in his hands, and then lifted it to his head again. Before he could pull the trigger once more, the vision melted away. The next thing Willow knew, she was lying in a ditch, staring up at the stars. Ow, 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 son of a... She groaned as she pushed herself up, gingerly checking for injuries. Aside from a few bruises and cuts along her arms, nothing seemed broken. Her motorcycle had skidded nearby. She tested the engine and was relieved when it sputtered back to life. For a moment, she considered turning back, but the questions burning inside her were too strong to ignore. What were these images she was seeing? Were they real? Did they really happen? And if so, why her? With determination settling in, Willow climbed back onto her bike and carefully headed once again toward Colonel O'Neill's home. Colonel O'Neill's residence, 2300 hours. A few minutes later, Willow reached O'Neill's home. The lights are on. I hope that means he's not asleep yet, she thought as she parked her bike next to the Colonel's truck. Just a few steps from the door, she hesitated. What do I even tell him? He'll think I'm nuts, showing up this late to talk about visions or whatever that was. She considered turning back, but then noticed movement behind one of the curtains. Almost without thinking, she knocked. Crap, she thought as the door opened. Red? O'Neill asked, surprised. What are you doing here so late? His eyes dropped to her scuffed clothes. And what happened to you? Sorry to bother you, sir, Willow said quickly, but I needed to talk to you about something. May I come in? Yeah, sure, he said, stepping aside. As she limped past, he frowned. What happened, young lady? Spill it. It's nothing, really. I just, crashed my bike on the way here? Oi. He shook his head. All right, sit at the dining table. I'll get some antiseptic and bandages. Thanks, sir, Willow murmured. O'Neill returned a moment later and began tending to her arms. So, what are you doing here this late at night? I thought you were laid up in the infirmary after your fainting spell. I had a question I wanted to ask, Willow asked softly, wincing as the antiseptic stung. It's a bit personal. Okay, he replied, brows furrowed. I'm sorry to ask this, Colonel, but how did Charlie die? She glanced at the framed photo hanging on the wall. O'Neill's face darkened. Pain flickered in his eyes. Why do you need to know that? Hold on, did Daniel tell you about Charlie? No, sir, I'm really sorry, she hesitated, then continued. I was there. Or at least I saw it. In a vision, I think. You and your ex-wife Sarah, you sent Charlie back into the house for something. Then there was a shot. Her voice dropped. I saw everything, sir. O'Neill exhaled heavily. It happened when he was 8. I told him to go upstairs and wash his hands for dinner. He found my gun and, well, I guess you saw the rest. I'm so sorry, Colonel. Willow looked away. I don't know what's happening to me. Her words faltered as the room tilted. Red? O'Neill leaned forward, concerned. What's going on? She blinked rapidly, shaking her head. I just had another flash. Colonel, did you really eat an entire chocolate cake after dinner? By yourself, I mean. O'Neill looked startled, then embarrassed. Yeah, but how would you know that? You had it on the couch while watching a Simpsons marathon. She arched a brow. Seriously, sir? Suddenly Willow grabbed his arm, her nails digging in. Red? His voice sharpened as he saw terror across her face. Lieutenant, can you hear me? But his words melted away. Willow found herself standing in total darkness. Then, one by one, pinpricks of light appeared until the sky above was filled with stars. Looking down, she saw she was standing on water, an endless ocean stretching in every direction. Uneasy, she lifted her gaze again. The constellations were unfamiliar. She turned and froze. Wow, she whispered. It's beautiful. Not far away, perhaps a few hundred meters, a brilliantly lit city shimmered, its glow reflecting across the water. She stepped forward, each footfall sending ripples of silver across the surface. Eventually she reached the edge of the city. Looks like a pier, she thought. There must be a ladder somewhere. She found one and climbed up. Once on solid ground, she took in the sight around her. Towering spires rising at varying heights, the tallest dominating the center of the city. And then, just as suddenly, everything dissolved. Willow blinked awake to find herself lying on a bed in a room she didn't recognize. The next morning, Colonel O'Neill's residence. Oh yeah, I'm at Colonel O'Neill's house, Willow whispered to herself as she slipped off the bed, walked into the hallway and called out, Colonel? She spotted O'Neill sitting on his couch with a cup of coffee. Red, are you alright? What happened last night? O'Neill asked, standing with concern for his junior officer. You're talking to me about cake, then you suddenly looked terrified before collapsing. Next thing I know, you were asleep, so I carried you to the guest room. He held out another cup of coffee for her. Thanks for the coffee, sir, Willow said, embarrassed. Sorry for causing trouble. O'Neill waved off her apology. What happened, Red? How do you know about Charlie, and why did you seem so out of it last night? I told you, sir, I had a vision, Willow replied nervously. I'm telling the truth. I saw everything that happened with your son. I saw your ex-wife. It's like I can see your memories, but I'm not doing it on purpose, I swear. Okay, that's creepy on so many levels, Red, O'Neill muttered, rubbing the back of his head. Tell me about it, Willow whispered, staring at the carpet. And there's something else. She scratched the back of her head before adding, Sir, I think I may have also seen the lost city in one of these. I don't know what they were. O'Neill furrowed his brow, confusion and concern written across his face. The lost city, Willow clarified. The one Daniel talked about. The place with the ancient weapons? I think I may have seen it. To be continued.